Hey everybody, Hunter back again from Showtime Studios. This is going to be part number 3 of the mud weathering tutorial. And as you can see, we have all of the suspension done on the Type 16. And this has actually taken me the majority of the day. There is a lot of intricate pieces. It does have steering mechanism on it, which is very not real fiddly, but it's time consuming to put it together. One thing I wanted to touch on though, talking about the weathering technique and doing it this way with the dotting the putty, always remember, don't skip your modeling basics because you're doing this technique. Um, I've cleaned up all the mold lines on the control arms, the rear ends. Everything in here has had all the modeling basics done to it, and then the weathering part has been done on top of that. So don't use your weathering to cover up stuff just to cut corners, because it will show up in the finished product, and that's something you don't want. So let me see if I can get a little bit better view of it here. Trying to get the texture to show up there in the wheel wells there. You can see the texture. And, like I say, we kept it pretty light. We didn't go real heavy with the mud on this. Just kind of giving it some texture and some caked on dirt here and there. What I have done is, after I got all the suspension pieces in, I went in and did the dot technique the way that we showed you in a previous video, on top of all the suspension stuff. So that's all finished now. And then I went back and sprayed this hole underneath with my base coat. And now that the base coat is down, we're going to go on to the next step. And what I have done is I have actually mixed up a Vallejo model wash. And this is, let me get the color out here that I mixed in this. It's actually chocolate brown from Vallejo. You can get this at Hobby Lobby. You can pick it up on the shelf pretty cheap. And I've got a glare on my camera here. Sorry about that, guys. There you go. There's the part number. These LED lights in here and this camera don't get along very well, so I'm doing the best that I can for right now. I am looking to upgrade my camera here in the near future, so hopefully that'll help out on the focusing on things. But bear with me for now. We're doing the best that we can do with what we've got. But anyway, I mixed that up, and all I did was thin it out there's about 25% paint in here and about 75% water, and just mix that up. And what we're going to do now is we're going to do all of this area with this mixture here, and nothing hard about this at all. This is something that's going to take a little bit of time to do. Not hard, but time consuming. What we want to start with is we're just going to put this on. Mainly, we want to try to get it down onto our flat areas that are down in here, and like this area here. And then, anywhere where there's a nice flat area. We're not trying to get a whole lot up on the suspension yet. And then we just want to put it on, and this stuff is real thin. So all you want to do is just move it around. In behind everything and under the rear ends and stuff like that. Just get a good coat of it down and move it around with this. This is just a cheap brush, nothing special, and get it all moved around. And once you get everything moved around and into place, you're going to let this set. You're not going to bother it. You're going to let it set until it fully dries. If you want to speed up the drying process a little bit, you can use a hair dryer on it. But this is going to be the last thing that I do tonight, and actually the last video that I do tonight. So we're just going to put this coat on here, and we're going to leave it set overnight. And then tomorrow after work, I will pick up on the next part of the weathering process. So we're just, like I say, we're trying to get it down in all the flat areas and get it to move around. You can put it in heavy in some areas, not as heavy in others. Just very random, but try to get the whole surface covered. And remember, this is a wash, so what's going to happen is it's going to, flow to all of the raised parts and the edges. And when this is all said and done, I'll show you how it comes out and the reason why we do this step. This is not going to show up the mud. This is not creating the mud effect. What this is doing is creating a shadow around our blobs of mud and our texture that we have on the surface. And it's also going to highlight some of the edges and some of the suspension and stuff like that. But we will be going back with several different colors of washes on this to make everything come out just the way we want it. But this is the first color, and you can use any color you want to, depending on what type of mud you're trying to simulate. If you're trying to do like a clay or something like that, you can put more red in it to make it look like make it look like clay. And if you want it to look like wet mud, you want to put something in that's got a little bit of a sheen to it. And we're not going to get into that on this tutorial, but there is a way to do mud that looks like it's wet. It actually looks like what we're doing right here, and it stays that way when it's dry. So there is a technique for that. But like I say, we're not going to do that on this one. And now we're still working around everything. Now what I'm doing is I'm working just this side right now, all the stuff that I can get to, and then I'm going to turn it around and make sure that I get the other side of it real good. And I'm staying away from all the high parts up here on the suspension. I'm trying to focus in on everything that's down low first, and then we'll go back through and do some of the suspension work. And like I say, just be random with it, put it heavier in some areas, not so heavy in others. And it's a pretty neat effect when it's done and it's dry. So now we're going to turn it around here. And we're going to continue on this side, and we're going to reach through in areas like this and try to catch everything that we couldn't get from the other side. And don't worry about getting this on something that you don't really want it on when you're finished, because the coats that come after this will take care of all that problem. So don't be worried about that. It's a very easy technique for the most part. And, again, we're using products that they're not actually weathering products. They're the paints that we're using on our builds. And, it's cheaper for you guys that are kind of, on a budget when it comes to modeling. You don't have to go out and buy all of these, different weathering things and, kits and stuff like that. You will need a little bit, but you don't need a whole array of them to turn out a very nice and in-scale weathering project. So, and for anybody out there that thinks I'm anti-weathering product, that is not true. There's a lot of those products that are very nice, and they do what they're designed to do. But they do add up as far as costs. So I'm trying to just show guys an alternative way to do weathering without spending all the money for all the different styles of weathering products. Okay, so we're doing pretty good there. We've got everything coated down underneath of the chassis. So now we're going to move on to the flatter parts of the chassis here. And I still have to go back in and paint like the brake rotors and the calipers and stuff like that. That's something that's all done after I get this technique pretty much done. And then we'll do a final, like a dust coat over top of all this that blends all that in. Because, of course, mud will not stick to a rotor. Because, when you hit the brakes, the caliper is going to scrub it off, as it goes through as the rotor goes through the caliper, it's going to scrub any mud off of it. So those would always be silver. So you can paint them at any time. I don't like painting them yet because, like I say, there wouldn't be any mud on the actual brake rotor itself. So I like to go ahead and do this step first, and then I'll go back and do all the detail painting. Just like on the rear ends and stuff like that, we're going to do some dry brush work. We're going to do some panel line work. A lot of things are going to be happening after we get all of this down. So, like I say, just remember this is all initial work, and we will really make this thing pop from this point as we move forward. And I haven't been looking at the screen too much while I've been doing this video. I've been paying attention to, actually where I'm putting everything. So hopefully everything is in a decent view there for you guys. And like on this steering stabilizer here, there's actually a boot on there. That's going to get painted black when we're done. And then we'll go back with the dust technique. And that will be the dust that gets on that black boot. So like I say, we got a lot more work to go yet. So stay tuned, follow along. Hopefully, everybody can learn something from this tutorial. And maybe you can start weathering some of your projects and, have good luck with it. Okay, so there we go. We've got that all covered in. I'll try to hold it up here for you guys and let you see it, what it looks like right now. That's what it looks like with the wet wash on it, on everything. So that's where we're going to cut this video off at. Like I say, I'm going to let this set overnight. When we come back tomorrow to pick up from this point, I'll go ahead and start the video, and you'll see what this looks like once it dries, and then we'll start doing the next step. So stay tuned for that. Like always, this is Hunter from Showtime Studios, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.